Hello everybody, my name is Kamara and today we are going to be reviewing our 6th episode of Season 2 of Bubble Guppies. Season 2, Episode 6, The Cowgirl Parade. In this episode, Molly and Gil spot Dusty, a cowgirl on her horse Rusty, practicing with her lasso before heading to the Cowgirl Parade. The Guppies are then thrown into a day of learning what cowboys and cowgirls do. When they arrive at the parade, Dusty's calf gets into trouble, and Molly has to use everything she's learned to save the day. Now, this episode, I really love it. Also, who remembers that Nick Jr. They were celebrating like cowgirls and cowboys all month long. Who remembers that? Because I do. That it was left all in my mind in this episode, and the song in this episode, which slaps, will always be playing in my mind every single time I think about that little promotion. I'm gonna call it promotion. So our episode starts with Molly and Gil and Bubble Puppy swimming to school, and they spot a little calf just running around, and then they spot cowgirl Dusty, who was able to wrangle her up with her lasso. And then she explains that she's a cowgirl, and she says that she's the best, she's the rootinest, tootinest cowgirl in all of Bubble Tucky County. And she says that they're practicing for a cowgirl parade, and they're gonna be in it. And Molly and Gil really want to come. And on their way to school, they're pretending to gallop on horses, which is really cute. And when they finally get to school, they explain that they met a cowgirl named Dusty, and she's with her horse, and she's gonna be in a cowgirl parade. And then we have our question segment, which explains what a cowgirl and a cowboy needs to be a cowgirl or cowboy. Like a cowgirl hat or a cowgirl lasso and a horse. And then we have our song, which to this day will forever be having a permanent loop in my head. Forever. Like when somebody mentions season 2 of the show to me, the first thing I think of is, I wanna be a cowgirl, just a riding on a horse, sitting tall in a saddle, with my cowgirl hat on, of course, and I'll be roping lots of cattle, or riding in a rodeo, 'cause I wanna be a cowgirl, 'cause that's the coolest job in the land. Yeehaw! That song still is a banger to this day. You can't tell me otherwise. When somebody mentions season 2 to me, this song immediately comes to my mind. And then we have the shop segment, which is the opposite saloon. And we have Gobi and Dima. And Gobi wants, and I like how this segment and the rest of this episode going forward explains about what opposites are. Like stop and go, sleepy or awake. We'll talk about that more in the story segment. And Gobi says that he wants a small bowl of spaghetti. And when I swear, the proportions are just so silly. They're just so silly. And it turns out his bowl of spaghetti is a bit too small, and he wants a much bigger bowl of spaghetti. And then he gets that, and then when he says that I need a fork, Dima gives him a humongously hilarious big fork. Also, who remembers those giant utensils that you can get off Amazon? I think they're still available on there. Who remembers that? Who remembers? You know, the big utensils that people be using for jokes, like, make no sense. Like, how am I supposed to eat with that? How am I supposed to cut? How am I supposed to do that? Just Dima's so funny and random. I love it. She's the one that holds these shop segments together. I swear. So then, Gobi needs to find out what's the opposite of big, so we say small. And then he finally gets a small, portionable size, I don't even know if that's a word, fork. And then before he's about to eat, Dima says, hold on, I almost forgot your meatball. And then she says, you might want to stand back. And a freaking giant, boulder-sized meatball rolls out of nowhere. And then she says, you just see the really big size. And I'm like, girl, first of all, who is eating that? How could that even fit in the bowl? Shoot, that would just be more meatball than spaghetti. I mean, nobody wants all that meat, girl. I love you, but still, oh my God. All right. But anyway, then we have our lunch segment. And then Nani got macaroni and cheese, which is really funny. And then we have our Molly and Gil segment, which Molly is using a lasso, and then Gil wants to have a try, and turns off he bit off more than he could chew because he ends up getting all on him, and that lasso looked pretty tight on him. Poor thing, he must have been squished. Oh my god. And then Molly was able to pull him off him. I'm talking about like pull it off of him to where he's spinning a lot. And then he's all dizzy and stuff. He's like, I'm okay. Poor thing, all dizzy. Oh my god. And then we cut over to the classroom. Everybody's playing cowgirls and cowboys. And then Mr. Grouper pretends to be a horse for Molly. She's riding all around the classroom. Everybody amazed. It's just so cute. And then everybody explains that they all want to be a cowgirl and cowboy and how they're excited for the cowgirl parade. And then it's finally time to go outside. And then we have our storybook segment with Gobi and Gil as the main characters, the GG boys. Should I name them the GG boys because Gobi and Gil, their names both start with a G? GG boys. Should I? That sounds like a nice name. That sounds pretty cute. But if you guys don't want me to, then that's fine. But anyway, they're herding a herd of elephants, and instead of horses, they have zebras. Which, I mean, they look like they're in a savannah. It doesn't explicitly say, but I mean, it does make sense. When I was younger, let's be honest. When we was younger, we all just called zebras horses with stripes. We can't lie about that. We can't lie. I was one of those kids that did. But they have to get their elephants to a watering hole, and to get past the watering hole, they have to get through a bunch of hyenas. And the leader, he says that we'll let you through if you can make us laugh. And they start making funny faces, which it made me laugh. But then the leader of the hyena pack, he yelled at them and said, "Not funny!" And then they all run off. And then from the distance, they see that the other hyenas are laughing. And I love this because when hyenas like scream, it sounds like they're laughing. So that's pretty clever. That's clever. It turns out they think that opposites are hilarious. So they decide to do something that has opposites involved to make them laugh. And when they come back, they're awake on their zebra, so they decide to play like they're asleep. And they said, "We're awake. We're wide awake." And then that gets them laughing, and they're able to sneak past. But then when they notice that they're leaving, they're like, "Hey, y'all come back here!" And then they're running away, and when they're hiding behind a rock, the music when the hyenas are running after them in the wrong direction is just so funny. It made me laugh as a kid. And then when they're able to get their elephants to the watering hole before they finish drinking, the hyenas finally caught up to them. And then they're like, "You know what?" And they're like, "What?" "You guys are hilarious. Make us laugh again." And then they jump into the water and they exclaim, "I'm dry. I'm really dry." And then all the hyenas are laughing and they're like, "I want to be dry too." And then they're like, "You guys are hilarious." And that's how our story ends. Happy ending. What I call these villains, I kind of do, but I kind of don't because, like, I feel like these villains will have a soft spot if something is achieved by their standards. So I won't say a full-on villain. I'll just say obstacle. I'll put them in the obstacle category. Okay, I'll put them in obstacle category. And then we have our dance song, which is really nice. I like it. Dima's singing. She sings really, really well. And then we have our Molly and Gil segment again, where Gil is showing Molly him roping a herd of the little fish, and they're all moving like little cows, and one of them gets away, and then Molly tells Gil to use his lasso, and then when Gil uses his lasso, he thinks that he got it, but then little fish has other ideas, and he spins all around. I don't know if that fish is a girl or boy. I don't know. I'm gonna just say they them. And the little fish, they spin right around him, one of them, and then he gets them all tied in a lasso again. Oh boy. Let's just say lassos aren't really for Gil, especially towards the ending, but we'll talk about that later. And then all the other fishes just looping around him. And then Nani comes and they tell Molly and Gil it's time for the Cowgirl parade. And then when they finally make it there, I really like the setup. It looks like an old the setting really reminds me of, who remembers that old Disney show, Chef Callie's Wild West? I'm really getting those type of vibes. Although this episode came way before that show came. So, yeah, I'm just getting those vibes. It's really, really nice to me. And everything's going great. You know, the little balloons and stuff. Everybody in Cowgirl, Cowboy attire. Little cows and stuff. The same cow from earlier in the episode. And then Dusty comes, and she's doing all types of tricks and stuff with lassos. And at one point, she grabs Molly she uses her lasso to pull Molly up on her horse. I mean, let's be honest. We would all want that to happen to our we would all want our favorite celebrity to do that to us. Not with a lasso, but just pull us up on stage and dance to the music. Come on. I kind of wanted that for JoJo Siwa when she was still performing. But I never got to go. I only have one JoJo bow. But anyway. And then everything's going great. But then we have a snail who's blowing up balloons. One of the balloons that he was blowing up actually pops, and it scares the little calf away. And then she runs through the parade, and she causes she also bumps into Dusty's horse, which also makes her fall into like a little water barrel. But Molly's still on there, and then luckily Dusty's okay. She just fell in water. But then she says somebody's got to stop that little calf before she gets hurt. And luckily Molly's still on the horse, and she said, "I'll do it, Dusty." And then she's riding that horse all by herself. You know, my girl. She making a commitment. She looking up to her hero. Okay, she looking up to her hero. She looking up. She looking up. And then when she has the lasso, she finally is able to rope over that horse. She's able to grab the calf, but Rusty is still going. And they're about to head over to a cliff. And this, I did not like this scene as a kid. Like I said before, and I'll keep on saying it, I have a big fear of cartoon characters getting into deadly situations. I do. It just, sorry about the siren. I'm sorry. But it really, really, really does not, it does not ease me well. I hate it so much. And then, luckily, the opposites will come into play again in this episode, in this part of the episode when they're keeping on going. But when Rusty's still going, and then Molly asks the viewer, what's the opposite of go? And the little fishies, when they're trying to catch up to her, they're like swimming and they're like closing their eyes because there's a lot of dust. I imagine there'll be a lot of dust where they're galloping at. And then they say stop. So then when Molly finally tells Rusty to stop, he stops, and and we even get like a inside view of the cliff with like little dust like falling from it, and like, thank Lord heaven above they survive, and thank opposites attract for saving the day as well. So yeah, thank God. And they're able to get back to the Cowgirl parade safely, and Dusty basically gives Molly her roses for being the ropinest cowgirl she's ever seen. And she gives her a hug. And the announcer of the parade even says, let's hear it for our hero of the Bubblitucky County Cowgirl Parade, our very own Cowgirl Molly. And she deserves it. And I like it I don't know if you can see, but when the camera pans out, you can see Una also giving Molly a hug, which is really, really sweet. They're besties, along with Dima and Zuli later on. So, and the other Guppies. Just so sweet. I love that so much. And then we have our last Molly and Gil segment. Molly and Gil basically congratulating Molly and being a really great cowgirl. And he sees the little fish again, and he tries to rope it again. And let's just say, oh boy, let's just say he did not get a little fish. You want to know what he caught? He caught a freaking bull. He caught a bull. And baby, let me tell you that bull was not happy. He was, I don't know what that's called. He was doing that thing with his foot. He was angry. He ran after Gil. Let's just say you do not want to mess with a bull when he's angry, especially with them sharp horns. This ain't no Ferdinand, baby. I do not want to be messing with no bull. No. And I was so scared as a kid. I was like, is he gonna be okay? And I was like, oh, he just got a big cow. That's not a big deal. But then when I found out older what that cow actually is and what they do with their horns, I'm like, oh no. Is he alive? Did he survive? Obviously he survived. I mean, it's not like he died. Still, my goodness. Mm-mm. I would not want to mess with no bull. And that little fish is clever. I theorize that little fish conjured up that bull to be a replacement for not having to be caught by Gil. That's my little theory. And then little fish, who's not lassoed, moves at Molly and in the episode. So other than that, I love this episode. I love any cowgirl theme, cowboy theme, and any cartoon. And this episode was just really, really good. The song will forever be in my head on loop. It was a really, really good episode, and I couldn't have this episode any other way. So this episode is getting a 10. It's getting a 10 out of 10. I loved it. It was so, so good. And I'll be listening to I Want to Be a Cowgirl / Cowboy until the day I'm gone. Okay? Okay. Now, tune into our next episode as we will be reviewing Season 2, Episode 7, Firefighter Gil to the Rescue. See you all next time.